John Edgar Wideman's story, The Beginning of Homewood, opens as the narrator tries to explain how the story came into being. It began as a letter to his brother, which he began writing on a Greek island 2 years ago, but never finished, never sent. Addressing his absent brother, he then proceeds to tell the story that came before the letter, the story about his great 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 grandmother, Sibylla Owens, and how she escaped slavery and settled in Pittsburgh in what is known as Homewood. At his grandfather's funeral, the narrator had heard the elderly aunt's talk of Sibylla and the beginnings of Homewood. Through the intervening voices of his aunt May and Bess, the narrator relates the story of Sibylla's escape, her 500-mile flight through hostile, dangerous territory. Having been a slave on a plantation near Cumberland, Maryland, Sibylla escaped one night with her 2 children and Charlie Bill, the white man and son of the owner, who stole her when he learned that his father planned to sell her. The year was 1859. Sibylla was around 18 years old, and Charlie was the father of the children. Charlie and Sibylla went on to have 18 more children. Eventually, as Aunt May relates, the other white men they did not want one of their kind living with no black woman, so Charlie up and moved. And the neighborhood where he moved, way up on Preston Hill, where nobody round trying to mind his business, marked the beginning of Homewood. Sibylla was remarkable not only because of her courageous escape from slavery, but also because of her legendary ability to refuse to internalize her status as slave. She was known throughout the plantation as a woman of exceptional pride and reminded old-timers of another woman who maintained the autonomy of her body against all common sexual advantages of white owners by wearing a cage around her torso. After Aunt May and Mother Bess finished telling their story about Sibylla and the old days, the narrator's voice returns in the final paragraphs. Again addresses his brother, whom he last saw in chains, old-time leg irons and wrist shackles, and 20 pounds of iron dragged through the marble corridors in Fort Collins. He wonders if there is a larger scale of justice at work, if the court could set your crime against Sibylla's, the price of our freedom against yours. The story, The Beginning of Homewood, employs Wideman's call and response narrative technique to blend the stories of his ancestor Sibylla Owens, his elderly aunt May, and his own incarcerated brother Robbie. In the story, which he confesses has something wrong with it, he poses the questions whether Sibylla's crime can be weighed against Robbie's. Though Wideman never offers a resolution for this thorny problem by juxtaposing these two images of freedom and bondage, he invites readers to explore the complex and deeply ambiguous moral landscape that all of the characters inhabit.